And hello, everyone, and welcome back to our candidate series. And today we have on a huge guest, the former senator for the state of Alabama and current candidate for governor, Senator Doug Jones. Hello, Senator. Welcome to the show.
Jake, it's great to be with you. Thanks so much for having me.
Sir, there is a lot going on in the world, and I have a few questions to ask about this race. First, what do you believe is the most important issue facing Alabama families?
Look, it is a combination that all goes back to affordability right now. I mean, we hear that a lot, and all the political pundits talk about it. Democrats talk about it, Republicans talk about it, but it's really true. I think it's happening all over the country. It's gotten worse with the current war in the Middle East and gasoline prices going up $1 a gallon just in the last 30 days or so. I had to fill up today in Montgomery, and Lord have mercy, it was like $4.50 for kind of mid-range gasoline. But it includes groceries, it includes utility bills, it includes everything. The cost of housing is up. I mean, we've got one of those states where we don't make as much money. Our average pay is less than that around the country, but our costs have risen a good bit. I mean, I think the last I saw is that the average wage in Alabama is about 73% of the national average. But our costs are hovering around, we're a little bit cheaper than the national average, but not much, maybe 90 cents on the dollar. So I think affordability is the biggest issue that folks are facing right now because hits home. And included in that, obviously, is the cost of health care. I mean, healthcare is a driving thing in Alabama. We did not expand Medicaid, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But the cost of healthcare and health insurance is just going up and up and up. And so that's the biggest thing that I'm hearing across the state these days.
Talking about gas prices, I drive a little wind-up car, so I don't have to put a bunch of gas in my car, but it's gone from about a $25 fill up to nearly $40 in just a
Yeah.
matter of weeks. So,
Yeah, no, it's crazy, and it's something that Americans didn't ask for. You may have seen the other day when we chatted the other day. I have called on the legislature and Governor Ivey to pass a moratorium on collecting the gas tax. I think it's like a 30 cent a gallon gas tax to give the folks in Alabama an opportunity to kind of understand the dynamics and the high cost that's coming, give them a chance to take a breath a little bit and factor those high costs into their daily lives. Just a 2 month, maybe 3 month moratorium, it would put $50 million or keep $50 million a month in the hands of Alabama taxpayers and those coming through tax. And it wouldn't hurt the state to do that for a little bit and just kind of put a pause on a little bit of the road work. But that's one thing I think we could do to help immediately.
right. So talking about Medicaid and expansion of that, what is the day one agenda for the Jones administration?
Well, first off, I think day one is to try to have that executive order expanding the eligibility for Medicaid. That's not the end of the line. It's still got to be funded, and under the big beautiful bill that our Republican members of Congress passed this past year. Medicaid expansion is a little bit more difficult. It's taking away certain taxes and things like that we were collecting that we can't collect. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but I think day one is certainly going to be really important. Expanding that eligibility and letting folks know in the legislature that there is a champion for Medicaid expansion now that we haven't had. And I'm hoping there'll be others Democrats that are get elected that will also be champions. It's really important to save rural hospitals. The best way to do that is Medicaid expansion. So that's going to be certainly a day one initiative. We will have obviously start looking, we will have already started looking at appointments in the political process and getting a cabinet. I want to get a cabinet filled very quickly to make sure that services continue and be a little bit more transparent. I want to look, certainly, I will tell you right now, I don't know, I'm not going to repeat names, but there are members of the Alabama Public Library Service that I want to replace day one because they need to be off of there. This is not the book banning club. This is a library service. They should not hold libraries hostage. I want to do that. Same with public television. I think there are people who have been on that board too long a time. Now they've got a political agenda rather than serving the public. So that cabinet level positions, those kind of things, we will be looking at any number of things that we could do and hit the ground running. There's only so much a governor can do, but the governor's going to have a bully pulpit that we're going to use to the fullest.
A quick question about the cabinet in Alabama. Is there an advise and consent role for your
No,
cabinet? So it's an
no.
automatic appointment.
Yeah, now I think that there are certain appointments, like on the board of trustees, some of the universities, some things like that, that I think the Senate may do. But by and large, there is no, it's not like the U.S. Constitution. You can put these people in place and they start on day one.
Okay, well, that will make things a lot simpler because even if Democrats have a big victory in November, it's very likely that Republicans will control at least one house of the legislature. And I
Yeah,
figured they might try to gum it up.
I think as a practical matter, you look for both houses. It will be very difficult for Democrats, I think, to flip one of the houses. We'll see where things are and where things stand. But certainly there are opportunities now to narrow the gap a little bit. And I think that that's important too. But the fact that, we're going to elect we're going to elect a couple of Democrats statewide. I am absolutely confident of that. I believe I'll be one of them. And when that happens, I think everybody will start working together a little bit more than we see because they're going to be looking over their shoulders. If that many people had voted for a Democrat, they're going to be, Republicans in the legislature will be looking over their shoulder. And quite frankly, I'm hoping that they will want to figure out ways to work with the new governor because I know I sure will to try to move the state forward.
And speaking of Republicans wanting to work with you, what message would you offer to Republicans who might be reluctant to vote for the probable Republican nominee, Tommy Tuberville?
Well, look, my message is going to be the same throughout the state, regardless. It's going to be the same to Democrats to try to encourage them to get out to vote. It's going to be the same to Republicans, and it's going to be the same to independents. We're going to have the same message in every zip code, and that message is about people. It's about transparency in their government. It's about giving people that opportunity that right now is so concentrated among the power brokers in Montgomery. We want to put more power back in the hands of people. That means ballot initiatives. It means doing things to give mayors and city council and county commissioners more power to do things that they were elected to do in their communities. We want to shed a spotlight more and have more transparency in state government. I don't think there should be any citizen of Alabama that is satisfied with the way this government is working right now. Mostly behind closed doors. They come out and they do what they want to do, and their constituents are an afterthought. So we're going to do a good bit of that. But I'm also going to do this. I want to remind folks in the state of my record. And I'm very proud of the record as United States Attorney. I'm very proud of my record in the United States Senate, doing things for the people of Alabama. And I'm going to go talk to every constituency group that I can. I will go in every county that I can. I will talk to whoever will talk to us about my record vis-a-vis the other side's record. Tommy Tuberville, that's who we think is the probable nominee, has no real record. He has no legislation. I've got about 20 something bills that I can point to. He is an obstructionist. I was not an obstructionist. I tried to work with folks across. I want people to look at our records, regardless of who they have voted for in the past. get beyond the R and the D and look at the policies and look at the people and look at the results that they have delivered for the people of this state.
Talking about working across the aisle at that event that I attended that you were at a couple days ago, one of the questions, the first one you had was what was a vote that was very difficult for you? And you talked about the impeachment vote and how that was a long journey to get to
Mhm.
conviction on that vote for you. And a state that Donald Trump won overwhelmingly and
Right.
you knew was very probable to win overwhelmingly again. So I think there's a record there that shows that you're willing to work across the aisle. You voted to confirm several members of Trump's cabinet who came
Yeah.
before the Senate while you were there, most notably the Attorney General.
Yeah. Now I will say, I'm just going to add, since you brought it up, that's one vote I regret. To be honest with you, I did vote because to vote most of the Trump nominees, but the Trump nominees then were like, my God, the qualifications and the reasonableness of those people compared to what we're seeing today is stunning. I was disappointed that once Bill Barr got in office, I felt like he was the president's lawyer and not the independent attorney general that he said he was going to be. So I was really disappointed about that. But I come from a place when I worked for Senator Howell Heflin from Alabama years and years ago. He was a judge. And Judge Heflin used to say that the president deserves to have their team in place. And, qualifications and voting and advising consent doesn't mean that just because I might disagree with some of their decisions, that the president shouldn't have their team, that they shouldn't be confirmed. It was just when they have these agendas that clearly I thought were inappropriate, that's when I would vote against. So, that led me to vote for a fair amount, a significant amount, as a matter of fact, of the judicial nominees as well as the cabinet level appointees. But we're seeing a far different cry today with the people in that cabinet that I think are just wholly unqualified.
And speaking of that, unqualified, I think one of the underreported stories of the past year has been Trump's breakup with the Federalist Society. And, I disagree with most of almost all of his judicial nominees, but I really fear who he's going to nominate for the Supreme Court if another seat comes open now with
Yeah, I agree with you. And they will rush it through like they did with Amy Coney Barrett and like they didn't rush Kavanaugh's through there to the same extent they did with Amy Coney Barrett, but it was still rushed. I mean, that was one when I was in the Senate. You could not, Senator Grassley would not allow my staff that was working on that nomination to go look at documents that are basically public record documents as part of our due diligence. Senator Grassley decided to move forward with the hearing with Justice Kavanaugh quicker than what he said without getting all the documents from the archives. There was a lot of, I think, flawed things in the Kavanaugh, but you can count on the fact that it will be a very contentious nomination if this year, we see a justice retire.
I've often joked just what America needs to come together, another Supreme Court nomination.
Oh my God, it will be a mess. I can tell you firsthand, not just from voting on those two when I was in the Senate, but also dealing, when I was the Sherpa for Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson in the last one, those get really very, very contentious. Justice Jackson should have gotten 90 votes plus with her background and her qualifications. But it becomes very, very partisan when you're talking about the United States Supreme Court.
And luckily, though, a few Republicans, most notably Mitt Romney, a man of integrity, voted to confirm her.
He did, as did Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski.
Yes. How will the big, beautiful bill negatively impact education funding in Alabama?
It's interesting because I think the biggest impact will be on reductions in Pell Grants. and some of the other assistance going um, to students. That's the biggest one directly. Now, the Big Beautiful Bill creates a kind of a complement to the Choose Act. It creates tax credits where to when people donate money to institutions for scholarships, for homeschooling, and things like that. I think the more folks that homeschool, and I have nothing, instinctively opposed to homeschooling, nothing instinctively opposed to um, private schools, but I do worry about taking money from public schools away. And if you create these tax incentives, these tax credits, it will, in effect, potentially incentivize people to take folks out of public school, which I don't really want to see that happen. I am a big supporter of public schools. I think the bigger issue for Alabama is the Choose Act, in which you've got tax credits going, for families directly for private school, and that is going to take money out of the education trust fund. That is going to hurt Alabama public school systems a great deal. And I really hope that that can either be repealed or at least modified to give some folks, require these schools to have some transparency and accountability. There's a few other odds and ends that I think, there's SNAP issues that I think, and I think money for food programs that will hurt school lunch programs, those kind of things that are just kind of tucked away in that bill that people don't fully realize. I'm gonna tell you, Jake, that bill is going to hurt the budgets of Alabama going forward, not just in education, but in other areas as well. And the likely Republican nominee, Senator Tuberville, was all in favor. He didn't just vote for it; he was a full-throated endorsement of it, and it's gonna significantly impact Alabama in a lot of different ways.
Um, talking about Tupperville for a moment, um, do you feel this isn't a question I thought to ask, but it's one I'm going to ask. Do you think that he fully understands the role of governor, or he just sees it as a big flashy office? Because I don't think he fully understands what a governor can actually do in Alabama.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I'm not sure he fully understands the role of a United States Senator either. I mean, the role of a United States Senator is not just to be a rubber stamp for whoever's in the White House if it's of the same political party. It's supposed to represent all of the folks in the state and not just a select few. I'm not sure he understands the role of any political figure. If he did, he wouldn't be being called coach. Okay. He's going to be called coach, I assume, if he gets elected governor. I think that is an insult to the people of Alabama that did that. So we will see. But what it seems to me, is that he somehow believes that the role of the governor is more figurehead than anything else. The governor of the state of Alabama can wield a lot of influence and a lot of power, more influence really than power. And I think that it is a job that is going to require 7 days a week. Is going to involve some travel. It is going to take him away from his home in Santa Rosa Beach, and to do it right. And that's what I'm committed to. That's what I was committed to when I was in the U.S. Senate. And I think that there is, going back to your earlier question, I think that the people will see, when they see that contrast about the dedication that we have to this role as governor and to moving Alabama forward versus what Senator Tuberville may or may not want to do. I think that that's going to be what wins the election for us.
Well, hopefully, the voters of Alabama send him to Santa Rosa Beach and unemploy him in November. You were talking about the governor. If he's governor, I think power will really reside in Rainsville, Alabama, in the hands of Nathan Ledbetter. If
Well,
Tuber,
yeah, and to some extent it already does, to be honest with you. I think that our Constitution is set up such that the legislature both can has more power and can seize more power. And I think they've been doing that over time. And you only look at a couple of examples where you've got uh, lobbyists, the big money interest in Montgomery that are controlling the legislation. And the rest is just something that they do. Good example was the bill that passed recently concerning environmental regulations, where now the state is prohibited from having any environmental regulations greater than what the federal government does. Well, that bill got introduced into the state Senate, and the sponsor told Senator Figures from Mobile that there was just a group of people that came and talked to him. He didn't talk about it being constituents or anything. And she asked him who it was, and he refused to say who it was that had put that bill in front of him. That's what's happening down there. And that's what's going on in Montgomery every day. We see the same thing happening with the Public Service Commission bills, which another one passed today, at least a Senate committee, a substitute bill that's going to expand the Public Service Commission because all of a sudden, Jake, they think it's broken. Utility rates are high. We have the highest electric bills through Alabama Power of any state. And all of a sudden, when they saw two of these seats flip in Georgia, everybody thinks, "Oh my God, they finally woke up." I mean, this bill is probably the most woke bill that the Senate and the House are going to be looking at because they woke up to the fact that Republicans have broken the Public Service Commission. And instead of allowing the people to vote on it, they want to expand it. They want to give Governor Ivey 4 appointments, two for 2 years, two for 4 years, and they want to create a czar of some type that controls the PSC through the governor's office. That is just a wrong-headed way of doing things. People that are listening to this need to rise up and they need to call their legislators, House and Senate, and tell them to vote down this bill. That we do not need. Let people vote this November on the PSC candidates of their choice, and whoever wins, give them an opportunity to get their house in order. That's what needs to happen. We don't need to start doing crazy stuff that's not really thought out very well.
Sometimes the issue that people that follow politics closely and those who think we're observers of it and the elected officials, what they think is an important issue and what voters really think are important are different issues. What are the voters telling you is their most important issue? Is it the same thing you believe is?
Yeah, look, first of all, I really do believe, and I think the people of Alabama are seeing that it seems that our legislature is doing things that they're focusing more on things that we don't need or want and not on enough things that we do need and do want, like Medicaid expansion, like a lottery, like getting rid of the Choose Act to build up public education and not try to tear it down. So, there are some very simple things that I think people in Alabama want that the legislature could do with the passage of a bill. One, they create a lottery. Let Alabama participate in the lottery. Let Alabamians vote on it. The legislature alone can't put us in the lottery like the rest of the southern states. Remember, we're the only state in the Deep South that doesn't participate in the lottery. People want that. Whatever reason, they want to see it. The legislature could easily pass a lottery bill, designate the funds for education or for health care, whatever they want, and allow the people to vote on it in November. They won't do that in part because they're going to know it's going to drive turnout that may not help the Republican leadership get people elected. So they're not going to do that. And that's one thing I think people want that's pretty simple. I think people want to see all of the taxes on groceries go away, not just do it piecemeal, but just do away with all the taxes, the sales taxes on groceries. Our sales tax is some of the most regressive in the country. It's ridiculous. And groceries and staples like that should not be taxed, and people profit of food and things that we've got to have. The other thing they could do is to once again reinstate the no tax on overtime. Those are things that could be done very easily. You know, the legislature did that for a few years, but they let it expire. They need to reinstate the no tax on overtime. The last thing they need to do is they need to raise the minimum wage. They either need to raise it statewide and let people have a living wage, or they need to repeal the law that prohibits individual municipalities or counties from doing the increasing the minimum wage in their jurisdictions, and let those mayors, city councils, or county commissioners answer to the voters. And if the voters want to raise that minimum wage, do it. If they don't, that they'll either vote them out or they'll let them know one way or another. Those are just some simple, easy things that would help the people of Alabama tremendously.
Talking about the no tax on overtime, that was actually introduced by a Democrat in the Alabama legislature. I
Yeah,
believe it was Anthony Daniels
that's
that
right.
sponsored it. And also, you were talking about the minimum wage by localities. Jefferson County a few years ago voted to gradually raise their minimum wage locally, actually set a minimum wage. I don't think
Right.
people realize Alabama does not have a minimum wage outside the federal minimum wage.
Correct. Correct.
And Jefferson County was going to gradually raise it. And a Republican legislature who's not even from Jefferson County said, nope, you can't do that.
Yeah, it was actually a city of Birmingham. It was the city of Birmingham that did it, and a legislator who does not represent Birmingham at all, it lives in the more affluent over the mountain areas, um, ran down to Montgomery and got a bill passed prohibiting another city from doing that. And that at a minimum, if they don't want to raise it statewide, let these mayors and city councils who are on the ground in their municipalities, who know not only the citizens, but know the businesses that it will affect, let them make that decision. And if they feel like it's appropriate for their area, by all means, let's do it.
So, sir, I know you hate to do this, but how can voters find out more about the campaign? Maybe put some gas in the vehicle so you can go speak to groups and such.
Well, look, we've done really pretty well in fundraising. Haven't. You're never satisfied, I think, but at least comparatively speaking to other folks in this primary, we've done extremely well. We've got staff that are organizing around the state, doing that listening session like you came to the other day at Back 40 Brewing. We'll be doing more of those as days go on. And so people can go to our website, dougjones.com. Keep in mind that it's not a full thing just yet, where we want to hit this the right way. But on that, there's a volunteer link. We've got hundreds and probably over 1,000 now volunteers that have signed up around the state to get out and canvass and work and make phone calls, put the signs up, do the things necessary to win the primary on May 19th, and then the general on November 3rd, I think is when it is. So they can go to dougjones.com, real simple, dougjones.com. That's got a volunteer link. It's also got a donate link where you can go through ActBlue. It is secure. Don't worry about that. But if you'll look, there's also a post office box that if you just like writing checks, people can write a check to the campaign. Clearly, we need finances to pay our staff and to do the yard signs and to do the bumper stickers and those kind of things that we've got going out there. We feel really good, Jake, about where the campaign is. You saw the crowd the other day. It was not only a big crowd that we had for this, just a listening session, but it was an enthusiastic crowd. They were there, they're supportive. We saw the same thing the next day in Gunnersville at Donuts with Doug, that night at the Persistence, Alabama PAC event where I got the Keeper of the Flame Award for the work that I've done for justice and fairness. And then we saw it again in Athens the very next day. And candidly, I saw it all over Alabama with those No Kings rallies on Saturday. So we are getting just enthusiastic support. I'll tell you one of the ones too. Last night, as we're ending um, Women's History Month, we did a Women for Alabama event last night in Birmingham. They had we had folks zooming in from Huntsville and Montgomery and different. I mean, I think there were 4 or 5 different areas of the state. We had 200 people. We had 200 women there for our event last night, where Louise and I did kind of a fireside chat, and there was another 200 on Zoom. Just incredible enthusiasm for this. So check that out too. But the website is the way to go right now. You can follow me at Doug Jones on X and Blue Sky. Instagram is Doug Jones Bama, and as is Facebook.
Well, folks, also on the donation link, if I have some very wealthy listeners out there, I will remind you that Alabama cares about integrity in our election system, so there is no limit to the amount of money you can donate to a state race in this
That's
state.
right.
So
Uh,
donate and donate generously.
Donate, as we say, donate early and often.
Thank you, Senator Jones, for joining us. And I will be back on here again in the next few days to talk about Senate races and governor's races. So we will be back.